Honorable Groenewald, Honorable Keza, Honorable Chou, Honorable Kabanchava. That's the colleagues that are Honorable Butelis. Yes. She's here as well. I hope you are well, Honorable Butelis, no?
Very bad. I'm much better, Chair. Thank you so much for your concern. Thank you.
Okay. Initially, when we postponed the meeting to 1930, I could see we're not going to form a quorum at the time. I was still traveling. Honorable Director was still traveling. And then I look at the numbers and the others. Honorable Hadebe also was still held up in another meeting. So that's why I said, but I came in at around 7:05, but we had to wait for the others as well. That was going to be unfair. Then I've got the other, and I want to apologize for those who we have inconvenienced, with due respect. The apologies that I'm having is from Honorable Mabika, Honorable Dr. Nkosazana Zuma, due to prior commitments, Deputy Minister Bapela due to other line function, DG, Agent Departmental Operational Commitments, Temba 4C and other senior officials from the department will participate in the meeting in the DG's absence. Then we have the following colleagues as the delegation of the SALGA, whom we want to welcome. It's Councillor Nkadimeni, the president, Councillor Ngangelizwe, the deputy president, Councillor Tifos, the deputy president, and then Councillor Stofile, the NEC member responsible for governance. And then we have the CEO in our midst, and also the COO, our usual culprit as well in the meeting. Then I should think then, colleagues, we need to start. We do form a quorum, but it will be important that we note that today's meeting continues our series of engagements on the 2021-22 annual performance plan of the department and the entities reporting to this committee. You will recall yesterday we dealt with the Municipal Demarcation Board. Under consideration today is the annual performance plans for the South African Local Government Association for the financial year starting 1st April 2021 and ending on 31st March 2022. Amongst the issues that we have picked up is that the annual performance plan highlights some critical gaps that continue to impede SALGA from maximizing its impact in terms of the support provided to municipalities. For example, mention is made of the lack of legal provision for the extending Section 106 and Section 71 reports to SALGA, which deprives the organization of critical data that could be used to inform intelligent planning. This is indeed an anomaly, particularly given the gaps we've seen as the committee in relation to the implementation of Section 106 recommendations by municipalities, as well as the use of Section 71 reports as early warning mechanisms. A statutory role for SALGA in this critical accountability mechanism is crucial. As a committee, we support the call for legal provision to extend the Municipal Systems Act, Section 106, and the Municipal Finance Management Act, Section 71 reports to SALGA. Another critical matter highlighted in the annual performance plan is that is of much interest to the committee relates to the general economic decline in many towns due to deceleration of output in the mining, manufacturing, and agricultural sectors. About 2 months ago, we started what we intend to be a series of engagement on issues of local economic development and small town regeneration. We began with the discussion on SALGA's small town regeneration program, including a case study on the organization's small town regeneration project for the Karoo region. We were subsequently invited to attend and make input on the SALGA's 5th Karoo region's small town regeneration conference, which took place a month ago on the 18th and 19th of March. We gratefully accepted this invitation, and once again, I want to thank SALGA for the opportunity to make an input in what was a lively and informative event. It is instructive to also note that the annual performance plan's reference to the underutilization of infrastructure in mining towns and agricultural or farming communities, and how this misses a potential to revenue generations opportunity towards the vibrant local economies. This is a very serious and very urgent matter, which we intend to pursue with all the relevant stakeholders over the committee's remaining term of office. We therefore count on you, colleagues from SALGA, on your continuous cooperation and unwavering support in this regard. The challenges facing local government, as enumerated exhaustively in the first part of your presentation, are numerous and multifaceted. SALGA cannot then surmount all these challenges alone. We agree that yourself as SALGA, you can adequately respond to the local government problems only through a multi-pronged response with other stakeholders. We are too early, CEO, to load your presentation here. I still want to see the president making an overview on a lighter note. It is also our desire that our input today contributes to this multi-pronged response. I will therefore want to welcome you, Chairperson, and the delegation. And let me hand over to you for you to make that a overview that you have to make prior to you handing over to whoever. I see the CEO is already ready to present. Over to you, President of SALGA.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me start by greeting yourself and the members of the esteemed Portfolio Committee, our honorable members present here. And let me also appreciate the leadership of SALGA that has accompanied the President, the Deputy Presidents, but also Chairperson. Included in the list of our NEC members is Councillor Ola Pakat, who is also the Executive Mayor of our Metro in the Buffalo City. Chair, without much ado, you have touched on quite a number of the few issues that we had want to highlight to the committee, but also extending further into some of the outstanding issues that we think are critical with regard particularly to the review of the legislation in some issues which pertains to the MFMA. One, we have touched on it, but the other deals also with the fair allocation of resources, as you may know, particularly to small and rural municipalities. The enhancements which has already been given from the Fiscal Commission, which was led by the late Dr. Plakis, may his soul rest in peace. We have been able to find a fair footing on how best could we be able to design and fund municipalities appropriately in line with service delivery, but also with regard to councillor remuneration and councillor support services, which will make our municipalities viable. We also have highlighted issues which we have highlighted on Section 71. I will not repeat them, but also just to emphasize the point, Chair, that Section 71 also makes it opportune for all of us to work on an early warning system for our municipalities before the systems goes out of hand, but also aligned to the MFMA and the finances of municipalities as issues that have been raised strongly, has been issue of the increase of the debt that municipalities, particularly at household level, confirmed by the AG that 70% is already not collectible realistically. And our view as SALGA was a fund or a subsidy that must come from provincial and national government to assist with the smart metering as part of our revenue enhancement areas that we have spoken into, but also the revitalization of our economic development centers and economic development units in municipalities to be able to develop the strategies and continue with the work that needs to happen. Chair, let me hasten to say we will try through the mouthpiece of the CEO to run through an 85-page presentation, mindful of the time movement, but we'll also CEO, some of these matters, Chair, as you have correctly put it, are not entirely new. And we would assume correctly so that the presentation has been read by members and the CEO will not necessarily go through them one by one. But of course, as we engage, members are at liberty to deal with issues that have been raised on all the slides to ensure that we have a fair and a rich discussion which will assist us to take our municipalities forward. With that being said, Chair, allow me to hand over now, with your permission, to the CEO to present on behalf of SALGA to the Portfolio Committee, our annual performance plan. CEO, with the permission of the Chair, you may take over. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much, honorable members, for the opportunity given to SALGA to engage with you this evening.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. May I proceed?
It was said with my permission. I thought, yes, that's why I kept quiet.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and good evening to all the members of the Portfolio Committee, the members of the NEC led by the President, as well as representatives of COCTA that are present here. Indeed, it's always a privilege for SALGA to share with the committee the work we intend doing on a continuous basis, and in particular for this year, 2021-2022. You would notice in the presentation, Honorable Chair, that this is almost like the last year of our 5-year strategy as SALGA. Since 2017, after the 2016 local government elections. But there's one thing that is quite peculiar about this year, Honorable Chair and members, is that this year, in about 12 days, we will be celebrating 27 years of our democratic unfolding project as a country. So in about 12 days, our country will be reaching that milestone. And we thought one of the important things to raise, Chairperson, in line with this milestone, perhaps to remind all of us what was one of the central issues raised at the adoption of the Constitution on the 10th of May, 1996. If you look at the document that was adopted called our Constitution, it consists of a preamble. And that preamble reads as follows: "We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of our past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who have worked to build and develop our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. We therefore, through our freely elected representatives, adopt this Constitution as a supreme law of our country." So it addresses 4 fundamental issues. The first one, heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on the democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. The second one is to lay the foundations for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is equally protected by the law. The third one, improve the quality of life of all citizens and free the potential of every South African. The fourth one, build a united and democratic South Africa. We are raising these 4 fundamental points, Chairperson, given the fact that local government has played no lesser role in contributing towards these aspirational statements of our Constitution. Most importantly, the third and the fourth one, improving the quality of life of all citizens. So when we look at the context of the SALGA APP 2021-2022, we will reflect on the context where we are, given that in 1995, up until to date, local government in its different formations have played a significant role in contributing to some of these foundational commitments in our Constitution. And then part 2 will deal with the annual performance plan in terms of our priorities. The first part, Chairperson and honorable members, is the context of this plan. We will be reflecting as SALGA on the 20 years of democratic local government as a continuum from at least 1995, when we had the first transitional cities, towns, TRCs in our country, up until year 2000 rather. And we believe that many of these preamble issues, there has been contribution by local government. And to answer that question, whether there's been any transformational goal, our context, Chairperson, reflect 4 levers to assess that gain. If we say we have made any contribution as a sphere, working collaboratively with other spheres, we will be assessing it around these 4 areas: whether local government has improved the delivery of municipal services, whether it is managing budget performance correctly, and whether areas of governance and accountability are executed properly. And the fourth one, whether the areas of accountability result in consequence management. On the first area in the preamble of our Constitution, the provision of services to all South Africans, we think we have reason to be proud, Chairperson and honorable members. As recent as last week, Stats SA released a report that covers year-on-year progress on the contribution of local government to provide these basic services. So when you compare 2018, 2019, gradually on all those 4 components of services, local government continues to provide services on an incremental basis. And today we have a number of communities that still benefit around receiving services for the first time. Yet in the midst of that celebration, Chairperson, there's a stark reality where no less than 1.5 million South Africans, as reported by Stats SA last week, still have no access to improved water. So 27 years down, our promise of freedom for all, freeing the potential of every South African, addressing the historical injustice of our past, there's a reality that 1.5 million South Africans, in terms of households rather, and if you were to look at the definition of a household on average, we're talking about 4 people on a household. So potentially, you may be talking about 8 million South Africans out of 59 million population who still have not received the benefit of their dignity being restored. And I think as local government, it keeps us awake at night that this milestone continues to evade us, given a number of structural challenges we have. And when you look at the display of it, honorable members, is that even in metropolitan municipalities, we're sitting with this kind of backlog, but it becomes more worse in the rural municipalities. So these B1, B2, B3, B4 reflect the typology of our category B municipalities. But the B4 are the category normally referred to as municipalities that are completely rural, meaning even the town base is insignificant in terms of scale. So that's where we have about 28% of South Africans still not having any access to that. When you combine all the Bs, you are able to see that we are almost close to 50% chairperson of many communities residing in those municipalities. So it means if there's any fundamental address to be done to tackle this question going forward, the greatest focus of our country must be on those municipalities. The greatest improvement of governance, leadership, and resource allocation should be confined to these municipalities. And their spread goes further. If you look at where the spread of the backlog is, you could see that using the example of Eastern Cape and KZN and Northwest, Eastern Cape still leads ahead in a number of ways, where we have about 25% of South Africans still not having access to water in terms of households. And then KZN, as well as a number of municipalities in Northwest, as well as Eastern Cape. So the greater focus of resource allocation, as well as monitoring strictly performance of government at that level, we think as SALGA, it has to be around addressing this area. On the area of backlogs, Chairperson, in our context, provision of free basic services. It could be a number of reasons, Chairperson, which we will also study as SALGA in terms of going forward. Because if you look at in 2006, where we started with a number of communities being part of the free basic services, almost close to above 60. And today, it's almost less than 20% in many of these components. Is it a sign of many communities getting out of free basket services precisely because they are working? Is it because of poor targeting by us as municipalities? Is it because we are not providing these services at all, despite resources? So the jury is out there, and we think as SALGA, we will undertake an empirical assessment as to why is there a picture declining around this area? Because the inverse is true. In the reality of COVID, we anticipate that many communities, in fact, should be getting through that because of the structural realities of coming out of COVID-19 reality. So it is a worrying area, Chairperson, which we think combined efforts by all of us, COCTA, SALGA, and many other institutions, there has to be a proper response to this question of communities no longer receiving this service. On the third assessment lever of our performance over the last period, we think that municipalities are still challenged significantly on managing revenue and expenditure, at least from a level of balance. They are able to bill correctly, but the reality is that collections levels are slightly declining in many of our towns, regions, districts, and metropolitan municipalities. We are, however, growing confidence that municipalities have managed to adjust downwards the salary and wage expenditure in terms of the directives of Treasury norms to be at least 30% and below. Even though some of our municipalities like Amatole and many others, they are finding themselves in areas where they are still having their own ratios not balancing on those areas. On the area of managing our assessment of performance on governance and accountability, using the AG 2018-2019, many of our municipalities, at least from a compliance point of view, they are submitting financial statements on time. At least from a compliance point of view, they are submitting performance reports on time. At least from a compliance point of view, 100% have established MPECs. The difficulty, though, Chairperson, that we're observing as SALGA is that these commendable statistics do not translate into tangible oversight at the level of performance. Are municipalities exercising oversight and accountability properly within this report? And the picture is not good at all around that area. We think that we must focus on that area, particularly around area of accountability, where action is being taken when there is wrongdoing. So the figure is significantly low when we have 121 municipalities that are focusing on acting on these areas. And on the one hand, you still have significant number of MMs not taking action and or council. So AG reports 60% of action has been taken, and we're worried about the 40% that is not yet undertaken. So a combined effort, Chairperson, given that SALGA has got limited influence in terms of taking executive action, we think that a combined effort at the level of portfolio committees in provinces, MECs, and mayors within the municipality will go a long way to tackle this area. So as SALGA will be focusing on it. In terms of the continuity of the complexity of challenges, we think that even the new administration on the 5th administration will continue to face what we will share with the committee as ongoing complexity and scale of challenges facing municipalities. We locate them into 4 quadrants, Chairperson. There may be other elements, but we think in the main, these 4 components constitute the fulcrum of the challenges facing municipalities. And if we were to focus on our efforts to address this, we think we'll go a long way in responding to many of these challenges. In the main, the area of capability, governance, and leadership continues to undermine all the good efforts under fiscal, under service delivery, and spatial transformation. And these are some of the contextual issues we think they need to be addressed. So if we are sitting with South Africans, more than 30 million facing poverty, so how is it possible that at our municipalities, we are seeing a decline on the number of people in the household basket of free basic services? So there's an incongruence in that area. And we will be focusing on that as SALGA to find answers around what makes a number of communities to be outside the target of the poverty line, if the picture is like this. The reality of our municipalities must also be taken into account. They are different. And we will also be looking at the structural distress, which is the imbalance between revenue and misalignment between structures at municipalities. On the area of service delivery, in the context of 1.5 million households not having access to water, we are also worried, Chairperson, and we think combined efforts of answers must be found on the area of managing the declining levels of our infrastructure, the water, sanitation, in areas where we're seeing the growing levels of dysfunctionality, coupled with almost 50% of our water service infrastructure facing the challenge of the need for refurbishment and improvement. And some of them are also sitting at levels where we need to be addressed out of high risk failure. So these are the context issues that we think in our response as APP, we will be responding on. Maladministration, corruption, and fraud will be an ongoing focus, where we think that in the main, we are still not proud of the record of mayors providing less than 25% of oversight, councils themselves providing less than 26%, and MPECs providing less than 27% independent assurance. So if this area were to be addressed in that quadrant, leadership capability, we think we'll be able to go a long way in responding to these areas. Low-hanging fruit that the leadership of SALGA feels that perhaps working closely with the portfolio committee at a national level in parliament, as well as legislatures, this area, Honorable Chairperson and members, is only 2018-2019 as cited by AG. We will be receiving a 2019-2020 soon, and later on 2020-2021. So if there's about 40 employees in all these municipalities, There may be in one municipality in KZN 11, or maybe one in 11 municipalities. We will be able to get these statistics directly from Stats SA, but we are not sure what has happened in terms of these employees. Has there been action taken by municipalities? Are there any actions taken on awards made to employees, family members, and false declarations that have happened? And this is an area where SALGA does not have executive powers, so to speak, to hold municipalities account. But what the National Executive Committee of SALGA has done in July, Chairperson, is taking a resolution that says the administration of SALGA must be able to follow up with every municipalities, address questions to municipal managers and mayors to ask what has been done to take action on these areas. The second area is on consultants, the same picture where we are seeing a number of disclaimers coming out of consultants of municipalities. And you also have a challenge of municipalities where, despite capacity, theoretically, that there is finance established. If you look at Limpopo in terms of outliers, as well as Northwest, you also have 54% of salaries being paid to municipal officials in the finance department, plus the consultant cost correspondingly around that area. It is one area that is also concerning, and we think that maybe with the council of the portfolio committee, as well as select committee and committees in provincial legislatures, this issue has to be attended to because it will continue going forward. And SALGA has undertaken to communicate to municipalities asking for action to be taken around these matters. The other area that is also a concern to us as we continue with the APP 2021-2022, we think the lack of address of this albatross in the neck of municipalities will continue to trigger the risk factors that MFMA triggers on municipalities in terms of Section 32. That on the one hand, municipalities are reported to be owing huge amounts of money, 114 billion rand. On the other side of the scale, 230 billion rand is owed to municipality by cities. So inability to collect contributes directly to inability to meet day-to-day requirements of bulk services that municipalities use for trading account. So this scale continues to hog municipalities in a significant way. We also see MFMA report issued as recent as 2 weeks ago, Chairperson, that continues to worry us as SALGA, that 109 municipalities just in Q1, Q2 is continuing to show municipalities that are unable to make any form of payment when it becomes due and payable. You also have municipalities that continue to face challenges to have cash and cash equivalents during the entire financial year. So 188 municipalities out of 257 are reporting negative cash balances in Q4. So if this picture is already overwhelming to this level, we need to examine factors other than subjective limitation. What are some of the chronic underlying factors that we think will continue to undermine municipalities? So our response will be on some of the ideas we think must be done to address these areas, including the failure to make payments, as well as the inability to make ESCOM and water board payments, Chairperson. Our characterization responds to two elements that we think continue to weaken municipalities. It's the municipal factors, which are clearly stipulated, internal weaknesses of governance, but also national provincial factors, which we think if we were to respond on the capacity building interventions coherently as the three spheres, we will go a long way to respond to these areas. And in short, these are the four areas that are continuing to be an imbalance in the scale of managing sustainability of municipalities, the balance between spending as well as